Hey, this is a great topic, this episode that we're putting together here for our listeners. And it's been discussed many of times with many of clients, potential clients that we've come across. And I am looking forward to sharing all of this information with our listeners because I think it's going to be super helpful.
Yes, we often get asked what the difference is between hiring an agency and a virtual assistant. I think this is a very hot topic for sure for a lot of businesses. So we just wanted to really break it down for you, understand the pros and cons of both, and really know what are legitimate expectations you should have going into either. Because I think the services are very different. And Andrea and I have both been virtual assistants, and now we both work with an agency. So I feel like we both have a very good understanding on what the difference is. So, Andrea, how about we start off with that? What would you say is the biggest difference between a virtual assistant and hiring an agency?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think from my perspective, clients don't always ask that exact question, but we usually come to the crux of that question a lot of times during discovery calls, just based on the needs that a potential client shares that they have. So, for me, being a virtual assistant when I first got started, I would say a lot of agency owners or social media managers start out in that VA role. So it's kind of an entry level role in a lot of ways, I would say, for sure. And it's kind of some people's side hustle. Some people really do well and make it like a full time thing. But when I first started out as a virtual assistant, I started Smith Social Company in 2020. It was a side hustle for me off of the side of my desk of my corporate job. And I was doing it with the intention to leave corporate and be home with my kids. I was pregnant at the time. Um, or no, I had just had my son and it was COVID. That's why I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this anymore. So, yeah, anyway. So when I started doing that, I really initially started out working with a lot of my friends' businesses and helping them with kind of whatever they needed. So it could be like marketing materials, it was a website, it was social media, it was email marketing, it was, can you help me set up my G Suite? It was kind of more of an assistant role or a secretarial role, if you will, where I was really supporting them individually from like a one-on-one perspective and doing task oriented work. So I would say for me, a virtual assistant role is more, of course, there are amazing virtual assistants out there, amazing virtual assistants. But I would say, just generally speaking, a virtual assistant role is going to be more focused around tasks and supporting carrying out a strategy that was given to them, right? Like, I need this task done because of X, Y, and Z. Can you do it? Versus saying like, what would you think is the best way to do such and such or carry out the strategy? So, um, once I got enough experience under my belt, and then you and I came into the picture together and built the agency to what it is today, I would say the biggest difference between a virtual assistant and an agency role is just the amount of specialization we can provide to clients through having many, many, many team members that specialize in one area. So, graphic design, as an example, all of our designers are trained in college on how to do graphic design. So you can't be trained in college in every area that an agency can provide.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it kind of allows you to provide a more well-rounded and deeper level service on multiple fronts. So the agency is more of a, I would say, a white glove service in a lot of ways, where they're really getting full hands-on, or hands off from their perspective a lot of times, but hands-on experience with different team members that have a lot of them college level educated in their space. So it could be, the photographers we partner with are all professional photographers that own a photographer business.
Right.
So a virtual assistant could be someone that is local to you, that comes in with their iPhone, is taking photos and videos on their iPhone, which is helpful too. But then that's different than a local photographer that owns a whole photography business, with the
Oh, for
professional
sure.
gear and the professional editing software and the professional camera and all of that stuff. So That would be, I would say, my long-winded answer of the difference between a VA and an agency is that a VA is more of an entry level, but more high touch service individually with the business owner, where the agency is more of a supportive role, but creating a whole strategy and carrying it out, where the
Right.
VA is just more kind of carrying out the tasks associated with the strategy given to them.
Yeah, I was going to say that if you would have asked me the same question, that's the key right there is the strategy. I think sometimes it's unfair to expect a virtual assistant to have the depth and knowledge needed to come up with a strategy for your niche because most virtual assistants are working with clients in a plethora of niches. They're working in all
Yeah.
different kinds of industries. It's not fair to expect them to be an expert in every single one of those fields. A virtual assistant's job is to be your assistant. So if you have a virtual assistant, it really is up to you to come up with a strategy and give them more task oriented jobs, like you said, to help carry out your strategy versus an agency. If you're working with a good agency, they're going to help you with that strategy because they have a depth and knowledge in that particular niche.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that for sure. That being said, there's definitely got to be some pros to hiring a virtual assistant versus an agency. Virtual assistants are amazing and have definitely been the foundation for both of us building this agency together. So, my question to you would be, what would you say the pros are of hiring a virtual assistant over an agency?
I would say if you are a business owner that likes to be involved in the strategy, you like to be that in depth into like your analytics and the strategy, having a virtual assistant is really better for you because really they can just carry out whatever you want for your business. And the second thing is they're usually more flexible, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
You can leave things up to last minute. So if you're also someone that needs to do stuff last minute, usually they're more willing and able to like jump in the day of and get something done. Whereas an agency, it's very structured. And to be able to have, a good plan put in place, you need time to carry out the strategy and you need to be ahead on all content. And so it's harder as an agency to just be like, oh, last minute, let's throw this in here. It interrupts the whole process of the whole operation. And that can be very difficult. So a virtual assistant, I would say, is a lot more flexible. So if you're that kind of business owner, I actually think you would probably prefer a virtual assistant.
Yeah, I would say to that point too, just from the learning curve that we've had with growing the agency and starting out as virtual assistants, that in the beginning of the agency journey when we just didn't have that many clients because we were still like new and growing, that one thing we did learn by the school of hard knocks is that that the last minute stuff is where we open ourselves up to error. And so, we have put into place, which I'm sure most agencies have, very rigorous double checks for things to avoid as much human error as possible, because we don't use AI to do our stuff. We are handwriting it. We are hand designing our stuff. We're not using templates. For our done for you clients, we're not doing that. So for us to just like willy nilly be like, oh, hey, we're closed today because it's a snow day. And then we have 15 clients texting us that same day to do it. And we're like trying to rush around and do it and then double check everyone's work and do regular work. Definitely poses a challenge. So there's a reason for that, but I'm glad you brought that up because it can be frustrating from a business owner's perspective to say, well, I'm paying you guys to do my social media. I'd like for you to put this post up for me today, but there are definitely constraints, and I'm glad that you
Yeah.
pulled that up.
Yeah. What would you say, because we kind of touched on the pros of a virtual assistant, what would you say some cons are?
Yeah, I would say with a virtual assistant, it's a double-edged sword because you are getting someone who can do everything for you, but they're not going to be an expert in every single thing. So they're going to be what you would call a jack of all trades, but a master of none. So they're going to be able to do copy. They're going to be able to do graphics. They're going to be able to do, email marketing, probably, maybe some pictures and video if they're local, video editing. But are they going to be a master at all of those things? No, because no one can be. That's unrealistic expectations. I would say a lot of times too, a virtual assistant doesn't have the level of experience that an agency does because their sheer number of clients is fewer because one person cannot manage that workload. So therefore you have less experience managing that type of client. A lot of times virtual assistants don't niche down, which also then adds work to the business owner's plate by having to say like, oh, by the way, that's not a picture of filler for that post. That's actually a picture of me doing a lip flip with Tox. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that. And then, you know, yeah, I would say it's just kind of that type of a difference. I will say for me personally, just being a person that likes to always feel secure in what I'm doing, there is a level of security that you don't necessarily have when you have a VA because it's one person.
Right.
So when I was a virtual assistant, I had my second son, and I had, gosh, at the time, I think I had like four social media clients that I was doing, and that was before I got smart enough to like really plan all of the stuff ahead of time, like far enough in advance. And so one of my clients at the time, this is funny now, but they're a fishing lures company, and
I always think it's so random that you did that.
they were one of my very favorite projects. Like they were super fun to work with. But so Eli, my second son, he was born in October. Well, the fishing lures company, they are like super big into ice fishing season. So did their biggest event of the whole year is called Stocktober. Okay. And so Eli was born October 8th in the middle of Stocktober. So I'm like in the hospital bed designing in Canva on my phone because I needed to put out a whole post and a story for that day. And I'm in the hospital bed post C-section with a crying baby trying to do this by myself because I didn't have anyone else to help me. But I'm like, I have to do this for my client because he paid me to do it. It's his biggest special of the whole year. Like, you know, so there's just that level of reliability where like with the agency style, we would have already had that planned 6 weeks prior and it would already been in there and approved and in the scheduler to just go out on its own. So yeah, I mean, at this point, going on maternity leave this time, I don't have to worry about being on my phone in Canva in the hospital.
Right. But I think, I'm going to give you some credit here too, because you were a phenomenal virtual assistant.
Well,
I think
thank you.
sometimes business owners have talked to us about this, where if they don't have a phenomenal virtual assistant, when life happens for them, they just ghost. That's happened to so many clients where they either ghost or things just don't happen, or they just say, sorry, like I can't help. Sorry, like too bad, like, because it's just them. And so there's phenomenal virtual assistants out there. And I would like to say that I was a great virtual assistant as well. And we're those type, but not everyone's like that. That's in the industry. So that's something to just watch out for. If you do hire a virtual assistant, it's just having that good communication about what happens when life happens. I think that would be important.
Yeah, I like that you said that too, just like, yeah, that level of accountability. And also, a virtual assistant a lot of times legally isn't set up as robust as an agency is with like the specific contracts or the different infrastructure that's in place. And they're not, sometimes they're not on par with the way they do their taxes and that kind of stuff. So that can get a little bit risky, where when you're working with an agency that's an official business, then they have a bookkeeper, they have a CPA, they have an attorney, they have somebody that can support their business so that you're not working with a potential liability too. So,
Right.
But that being said, virtual assistants are amazing. I know we hire a lot of them to work with us in the agency for one-off projects. So I love virtual assistants and was one myself, and I know you were too. So, in terms of like deciding between hiring a VA and an agency, what would you say is a pro of hiring an agency, or what are the pros of hiring an agency instead of a VA?
I feel like a lot of the mental work gets taken off of your plate, a lot of the mental energy. Now, granted, I need to have a caveat here. I think it's important that we need to say the right agency, because just because someone's an agency doesn't mean they're going to do this for you, but there are great agencies out there. I would say as an agency, you can rely on them for more strategy, because most agencies are going to be niched in a particular business. And so they're going to have more, data to back up what works in the industry. They're going to have real life experience with multiple different ends, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have an agency that's worked with 30 different med spas, let's say, they can give you good intel on like, okay, well, this really worked and this was in a similar demographic as you. Let's try this out. They're just going to have more data and research to back up different strategies that they want to implement into your business. And they really will take that strategy portion off of your plate as long as they're a good agency. They'll take a lot of that off of your plate, which is important because, I would say if you're a business owner that just loves being a clinician, you love being a clinician, but you do not love the marketing, or you don't want to come up with a strategy. You feel like you need help. You don't know if yours is working. Bringing on an agency that can really help you with that is critical and key to be able to just take it off of your plate, get the mental load off of your plate. You don't have to be so high touch involved in it. Of course, we want it to be personal to you and what you want, but the mental load is kind of taken off of your plate in terms of strategy. And I think that is just amazing for a lot of business owners. And then I would also say just the organization that an agency has is very top notch. And I think that's important for people too, knowing I know I'm never going to miss a story that's going to go out. I know I'm never going to miss a post. I can just rely that all of my stuff's going to be there and it's ahead of time. And I was able to look through it and approve it all. Like there's so much that goes into knowing exactly what is going to be on your feed. Because we've heard from multiple people in discovery calls that when they've worked with, I would even say other agencies too, or virtual assistants where things just get posted and they never see it beforehand. So if there are errors or things that are wrong with the content, then they're like, what? I never even saw this. I never even could prevent this from happening. Whereas with an agency that's organized, you're going to see all of your content ahead of time and be able to give them the opportunity to approve of every single piece.
It's interesting you say that because I reflect on our own journeys to back to the beginning. And I think about our very first Black Friday and Christmas season. And it's like you have PTSD from it. I do too. Just because like I felt at the time like we didn't really fully know how to support our clients in a planning far enough ahead process. We knew by that point we knew how to create content, how to be like as error free as possible and all of that stuff, and do a good strategy. We had mentors also that were in this space that were kind of helping us along with like what to do for strategy wise, but the process itself, it was like the most hectic week of our life because clients kept adding this on and changing this and oh, my friends are doing this, so I want to do that. And then we got to go back and change it and delete it and redo this and redo that. And so when I remember when our leadership team sat down after that season and we said, what went really well and what went really bad that we don't want to do for next year, when we made the changes and then the following year went into that season, I feel like we, first of all, had the most enjoyable Thanksgiving and Christmas season. Number one, with our clients, they were less stressed, and with each other and with our families. We got to take time to spend with our families versus like frantically doing social media. But we felt like we had to when we didn't really know how to plan ahead. But I would say definitely like with an agency, you're kind of gaining the benefit of their experience of how to make sure you're organized ahead of time and how to have kind of a more low stress. Because a lot of times people think of social media, they're like, that's not stressful, but then put Black Friday into it and you're going to be stressed. You're stressed because you're like, this is such a big opportunity for me. I need to nail it. Like I need to nail it with my marketing. And I feel like after we had that 1 year where we were just kind of like, it was our first year. We didn't know, like, you just don't know what you don't know sometimes. And then after that, moving forward, it's been a cakewalk for us. And I feel our clients feel that same way. So yeah, with an agency, you definitely do kind of get that benefit for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. What would you say? Because we've kind of hyped ourselves up a little bit over here. Just
being honest.
What would you say some cons though of working with an agency would be?
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest con, so in Talisa and I's roles in the business, I would say Talisa more manages all of our contracting team, like our employees, all of our content, all of that kind of stuff. And then I more work with the clients directly. So we kind of partner in that way. So I have a lot of FaceTime with the clients, one-on-one meetings every single month with clients. So I get the same feedback a lot. And one of those things is just like sometimes it's really difficult to plan this far ahead because things come up in my local community. You know, actually, even this morning is a great example that I woke up to a message from a client saying, hey, I was nominated for Best of the Best, and we just did her stuff. So now we're like, okay, we have to go to the drawing board. We have to do this one-off, you know, set of content for her because this Best of the Best voting is critical for her and her business.
Yes.
So yeah, I would say that would be kind of one of the biggest cons when it comes to an agency is just the amount of time that is, you know, that has to go between when we plan and when the content goes live. So sometimes there's a lead time of, you know, 6 weeks, and a lot can happen in 6 weeks. So that is a challenge for sure, especially if you're not a person that can plan ahead. I would say some of our clients get on the call and it's like a 15-minute call because they're like, oh, this is what I'm doing for March, blah, 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 blah. They plan it out. They already had it written down. Other clients, we get on the call and they're like, what do you think I should do? And I'm like, let's talk about it. Like, what's went well, what hasn't went well. This is what other clients are doing and what has working well for them. And so for the clients that are, you know, kind of need a little bit more support with the strategizing, I feel that when the time that the content goes out, they feel so relieved. They don't have to stress about it because they probably would have put it off. They would have put it off if they didn't have that support. So yeah, that would be for me the biggest con. The other con with an agency potentially, because we've seen it a lot, not necessarily with us because we've changed our ways specifically to not do this, but a lot of times agencies will hold people to like incredibly long and arduous contracts of like, you know, you're working with me for the next 12 months. And I'll drag you kicking and screaming if you don't like it. So I would say that is a big con that you're not going to have that with a VA. You won't. You're not going to have a contract that's 12 months long. For us, we have decided against doing that just because, you know, there's a lot of reasons. But I would say as a generally speaking about agencies, that would be another big one for me is just the stress around what if I don't like it? What if I want to change it? You know, and then another con potentially could be they might not be local to you. Mm-hmm. The agency might not be local to you. And so, you know, sometimes that does pose a challenge for us where we have like one client in a big city. And that, like, I would say where you live, there's a client of ours local to you, and you were explaining to us how where you live, people don't cross a certain river. It's like you just don't cross that. But I wouldn't know that because I don't live there. So there's just kind of little nuances sometimes about not being local. I would love to go to every single client event, but we can't. We can't go to every client event. So that kind of is a bummer, you know, from that perspective too. But, you know, if you do work with an agency that's local, the likelihood of them being niched into like medical aesthetics is pretty low.
Yeah.
A whole agency in your area, unless if you're in like New York City or Beverly Hills. Yeah.
You definitely might find it in bigger cities, but if you like are not, it's very unlikely. So I think overall there really are a bunch of pros and cons to both. And it just at the end of the day really depends on what your personal business desires are. How involved do you want to be in your marketing, and how much do you want experts on your side? Like, or how much do you need certain kinds of experts on your side? Would really, I would just ask yourself questions like that. Like, how much do you want to be involved? What things would you like taken off of your plate? And all of those things can play a big factor.
Yeah, I mean, we've had clients too that came to us and have a lot of personal success on social media. Before they started working with us, they just worked with us to not have the time investment. But so they don't have the struggle of like, I don't know how to do this. And then we have other clients that, you know, I've asked the question before, like, where is your website hosted on what domain? And she's like, I have a MacBook Pro. And I'm like, okay, you got to like back up a little bit. So sometimes there's like, if you have a really deep understanding of social media or you straight up enjoy it, there are some crazy people like Talisa that really enjoy getting on reels themselves. And, you know, if you're that person, then like a VA could be a perfect fit for you. So say, Talisa, that you are listening to this discussion and you're like, a VA is for me. I want to hire a virtual assistant. I don't want to go with an agency. What would be some questions that you would suggest that someone asks so that they find the right virtual assistant or avoid hiring the wrong one?
Yes, that's a great question. First and foremost, personality is a big factor in this because with an assistant, they're your assistant. They're going to be working with you a lot and very closely. So I guess the first thing is jump on a call with them. Do you like them? Or have them come in person. Like, do you guys vibe? Do you guys have a good, rapport happening? Like, I think that's a big factor is just how much you can get along with them, because that is essential because they're going to be talking with you probably all day, every day, and so first of all is just personality fit. But the other things I would ask for sure, you need references. You really need references with a virtual assistant because you definitely don't want one that's just going from client to client and that there's some red flags going on. So you want to have some good references, I would say, is key. So asking them for some good references, asking them for some examples of work, because, if you're a business owner and you want your social media to have very detailed captions, and then they give you examples of just two-liners, that probably isn't going to be the best fit. So you're going to want to, find someone who can give you what you actually want for your business. I think also asking them questions of a previous work experience, maybe their favorite client experiences.
Yeah.
I would ask them questions like that. What was your favorite project you ever worked on, or your favorite client to work with up until this point? Because I think you can learn a lot about people. Also ask them what their least favorite was, because if they're starting to talk about things that maybe would clash, that's something you would want to know. Or just you would know things not to put them on. You wouldn't want to put them on a project for an event if they're like, oh, I cannot stand helping people with event planning. You're not going to want to put them on your next event, because when people enjoy what they do, you can tell.
Yeah. What about, I know just through our hiring process of looking for different people here and there, gosh, over the course of the last few years, we've looked for a lot of people. A lot of people are not based in the US. So would you say, what would you say in terms of being based in the US or not? Like, would that be a factor that you would suggest that they look into?
Oh, that's a tricky one. And I feel like I need to be careful what I say about this. You can absolutely find phenomenal people overseas for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there is a benefit, especially if you're using a virtual assistant specifically. If you're using someone who's going to work that close in your business with you, I would highly, highly suggest finding someone local to you for many reasons. But one of the reasons is just so that they have a very good in-depth understanding of your business. You can trust them knowing that English is probably their first language, and they're going to understand how to communicate things online. And they're going to be able to work with you closely to understand your likes, your dislikes, your quirks, if they're local to you. I just feel like if you do decide to hire a virtual assistant, I would absolutely suggest trying to find someone local to you, because since they're more of an assistant role, I think it would play in your favor a lot better. But not to say that you can't find someone somewhere else that is not phenomenal, but just that would be my advice.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's other things that could be done in a business that an assistant could help with that an agency probably just wouldn't take on. Things like if you have an online skin store, packing up the skincare order and shipping it off. Like, we can't do that, for all of our clients. They're not even, I would love to have a whole room in my house full of all the skin.
Me too.
So I could ship them off. But we don't have that, but I would love to.
Or even if, they're doing an event, like your virtual assistant could go pick up the food for the event.
Right.
We can't just fly somewhere, we joke, we can't just Uber things for people all the time. You know what I mean? We would love to. We would love to be there. We would love to, but that is a restriction we have that a virtual assistant wouldn't if they were local.
No, we had a client have an event last night, and I'm like, I would have loved to come and eat all the cake pops. I would have eaten every cake pop table. But, all jokes aside, being local is helpful for a lot of reasons. I know recently, so there's a client of ours that's local to you, and you went in person actually to get video. Well, actually multiple trainings you've been to in person for different companies. I know you went to a PDO Max training in person, a Threads training, and you went to a Revision skincare training in person, which was, I know you were eating that up because you're skincare obsessed. So I know you were in actual heaven.
I really was. If I could go to all of them, I would. Just like sign me up for every single brand, every single skincare. Anyway, I'm getting off topic.
But that would be super helpful to have, you know, have them there. So yeah, I think that's a good one too to consider.
Yeah. Okay. So in your opinion, if they decide, okay, agency for sure, I want someone to help me with the strategy. I really want to be ahead. I don't want to leave things last minute. What kinds of things would you have them ask an agency before hiring them on?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I would say for me, just based on the nightmares that we've heard, I would say the number one thing is just really having a good understanding of the contract for sure. Before you even really go down a big road, I would really ask that question. Just like, how is it going to be if we do work together? You know, what happens if we go our separate ways? Are you going to delete all of my content? Are you, you know, just kind of like some of the big logistical questions, because even if you absolutely love them and they're going to lock you into a 12-month contract, people change. People show their true colors when they're not on a discovery call. So I would just kind of make sure you feel comfortable with the logistics. Secondly, if not tied with number one, is what niche do these people focus in? Like, is it, oh, I focus in brick and mortar businesses? Well, that means like a whole boatload of stuff. So you're going to want to find an agency that specifically niches into your industry, because there are so many things. Like, I can just think of content we put out all the time about skincare, you know, knowing the difference, even something as silly as like the difference between mineral and chemical sunscreen.
Yeah.
And being able to speak to that, or the difference between toxin filler and being able to speak to that. Because what we've heard is from a lot of clients is, you know, I spend all this money and I partner with this amazing group and I love them, but then when they send me the content, I feel like I have to rewrite all of it.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference too, even just, you know, anyone can get on Google and type, what is the difference between toxin filler? But there's a difference between having the Google answer be in a caption and more of a personal storytelling. We all have gone to the med spa. All of us.
Like, don't tell on me. Yeah.
No, but I'm just saying a lot of even like our contractors and people in our team, like we specialize in this. So we know, like, we're not going to write in your content. Again, I think we always use this example, but we're not going to be like, oh, just come in for a relaxing lip filler treatment.
No,
we're not going to write stuff like that because we understand the industry so well. But someone just off the street's not going to know that if they've never been.
No, you know? I mean, I would say this makes me laugh, but when you and I were together and we were in Virginia, went to visit one of our clients. This is so funny to me, but we went to visit one of our clients and I was like dying to try the salt facial machine, you know, like I was dying to try it because we've written so much about it and I really needed to try it. And I was pregnant, so I couldn't do it really much else. But so I got this salt facial done. My face was so beet red. It literally looked like I was in the sun all day because I have sensitive skin in general. Skin was super red, like immediately after. And then we go to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse to have a fancy. And I swear they put us in the back of the restaurant because they were embarrassed by how bad my face looked right after. So I would never in a caption write like, you know, come get a salt facial and then go to the wedding the next day. Now, I do have to say about salt facial, I loved the treatment. It was amazing. My skin felt amazing. It looked super glowy. Like, loved the treatment, but I know enough about it now to not say like there's no downtime. There surely is a little bit. You know what I mean? So I would say,
or like, even if you have sensitive skin, just an FYI.
Yeah, you're gonna look like a pizza.
Well, just an FYI, because that also builds trust with your audience. You can't just be like, everything's rainbows and butterflies all the time. Like psychology 101 with sales, you have to be honest about your services too, because that builds trust. So, you know, being honest about downtime, what it's like, just having people be prepared. Of course there's the benefits to it, but anyway, no, having someone that's specialized in your niche, they're going to understand those little nuances and different things. And that can make your content so much better because it can be more entertaining and more storytelling, and they really know it rather than just like, oh, here's what I copied and pasted off of Google. There's a
or
huge
Chat
difference.
GPT.
Yeah, there's a huge difference.
I would also add too, just like partnering with an agency that niches into what you're doing. What else you gain from that is we went into Christmas planning this year after a couple seasons under our belt, and people were like, oh, I want to do 12 days of Christmas. And we're like, no, bad idea. Don't do it. Don't do that. Like, let's be simple. Yeah. Let's focus on more simplistic things because people are interacting with so many businesses. It didn't do well last year. So let's, go back to the drawing board. So like, if you're partnering with an agency, you're actually gaining the experience of say 1 year we had 20 done for you clients for Christmas. We've done 20 months of Christmas stuff.
And and can look at analytics and actually know what worked well and what did not.
I know I'm like really selling up an agency, but I love it. But there are definitely questions that you need to make sure that you're asking for sure when you're interacting with an agency, just to make sure that they're the right one. Of course, as we both know, there are going to be some bad eggs, in either a virtual assistant or an agency space. So, Talisa, if you had to tell our listeners here what some red flags would be to watch out for when hiring either a virtual assistant or an agency, what would you say?
Okay, the very first one that comes to mind is not having references for both. I'm not saying like you need to get on a phone and call somebody that has worked with them previously, but do they actually have proof of concept? So can they show you Instagram accounts that they're currently managing? Do you like the style that they have? Can they show you websites that they manage or give you examples of some of their work? Because that is huge. If they refuse to give you examples or refuse to give you testimonials or references, like, oh, I'm just not comfortable with that, I would think that was kind of a red flag, in my opinion. So you definitely want to make sure you have some kind of work reference, whether it be testimonials, whether it be the actual work itself as examples. I would say that is key. I would say anyone who, I don't know, just that you don't get along with. I know that seems basic, but I really do mean it. I would say as a virtual assistant and in this business, it means a lot to me to have a good relationship with the clients that we have. I love DMing them on Instagram. I just had a client that was DMing me on Instagram, just barely, sending me just funny reels.
Oh, I love
she was like, oh my gosh, this reminded me of you. This is so funny. And like, I love building that relationship. And so whoever you work with, whether it's a virtual assistant or an agency, do you have a good relationship, or can you sense that there's going to be a good relationship there? Because I feel like you can tell pretty immediately whether you vibe with someone or not. But if you have a good virtual assistant or you have a good agency, they're going to want to have that relationship with you. They're going to want to have fun together. And that makes a world of difference. Really getting invested in your business is huge. And that is so much easier when you have a good relationship.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you said that. I would even say too, like shared similar values, like to us, we love working with women-owned businesses, and we have worked with male-owned businesses, quite a few. It's not like we don't work with any guys or anything like that. But I would say for us, like one of the things that we really love is supporting other women-owned businesses, because we are a women-owned business. We're moms, we're in our mom era, as they would say. So I do love kind of the shared values. You're going to have this person writing your content for you. So you have to think about, are their values in alignment with yours? Because sometimes captions can be written in a way where you're like, I don't fully agree with that, or I don't think that really goes in alignment with my brand. So, making sure that you vibe with somebody on multiple levels, I think is a great point.
Yeah, just key values. That's huge, because I love that you said that, because that's really important. So we kind of turned the red flags, I'd say, into green flags, which is totally fine. But what would you say are some of the other like green flags, like things that if you saw, you would be like, yes, this is a great fit?
I would say the clients that have come to us with the most excitement are clients that were referred to us by other clients. So
Yeah,
a
I agree.
green flag is if you have a friend of yours or a colleague or like, you know, another person that's worked with this person that can say like, I love them, they're amazing, they do great work, they're super responsive. That to me is a green flag for sure. You
Mm-hmm.
know, coming with a reference. Another green flag would be you take a look at their work, you absolutely love it. You know, another green flag would be that, you know, you feel comfortable with the investment because
Mm-hmm.
the investment that you have to make per month could either be so much that you're not comfortable with it, or it could be so little that you're like, why is it so little? You know?
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
point.
you know, so you kind of want to be in alignment with that too. So that would be a big green flag. Yeah, I think green flags are just, for me, you and I are such like by our gut people, you know,
Oh
like
yeah.
we'll get off calls and be like, what's your gut feeling on that? Or like if we're struggling in a decision, we're like, what does your gut say? And we
Yeah.
usually, you know, ends up being right. So I would say trust your gut, especially, you know, your intuition about a situation. Just, you know,
Yes,
if
I
you
agree.
feel good about it, then it's probably the right thing to do.
Yes, I agree with that because I've been very grateful we've trusted our gut when we felt like something was off. And I've really trusted our
Yeah.
gut when we felt good about something and like went for a big opportunity. So I agree with that 100%, like really trusting your intuition.
So this last kind of question I wanted to ask you is, what would be like some of the best parts about being a VA and the best parts about owning an agency? Like from your perspective, as the VA and as the agency owner, what are your favorite parts of both?
Oh, I love that question. Okay, I'm going to start with virtual assistant. So when I was a virtual assistant, this kind of is counterintuitive with what we were just saying, but yes, I felt like a jack of all trades. I feel like now I'm a master of something, which is
Mm-hmm.
exciting, but it was fun having the variety. I loved having a variety of different clientele and a bunch of different people I was working with, and kind of got to stretch myself in different ways and try new opportunities that I never had before. And since I was a virtual assistant, I felt like people gave me some grace as I was like learning new things too, which was very
Yeah.
helpful. So I would just say the variety was really fun for me. And then as for an agency, I this is just for me personally. This isn't as much as of what's fun about an agency, but I would say being a master of something, I feel like at this point in both of our career, we feel very confident in this space.
Yeah.
And it feels really good. It feels really good to love the space you're in and not just like love the space, but love the clients that you interact with.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like Andrew said, I'm a big skincare nerd and I just love it. But just like I truly just love what we do. Like I just love it. And I love how organized we are. I love not having to worry like, oh my gosh, was I supposed to post something for this person? Did I forget it? Oh my gosh. And like I just love the organization of the agency. So what about you?
Yeah, I would say that that with being a virtual assistant, it was really fun because you got to be super intimately involved with
Mm-hmm.
every part of a business, which was really fun to like tune into, you know, different aspects of a business that you wouldn't like new products. I mean, I would say we do new products coming out, but I'm thinking specifically of the fishing lures company, but like you know, being told about like the cool new fishing pole and like just seeing their excitement and they're like, you know, telling me all about it and all that stuff, which was it was really cool and special. We get to do that now, but it was just on a different level. It was very like
Mm-hmm.
personal. And then with the agency, my favorite part is like we get to do stuff that we you can't do as a VA. Like
Mm-hmm.
as a VA, your clients have to come first, right? And in the agency, of course, our clients come first, but you don't really get to like grow your own business and be creative
Yeah.
about your own business and like promote your own and you know, showcase what you think you're best at. I mean, unless if you have endless time. Maybe you don't have kids. Don't have kids. So you have more time to do it, but yeah, as an agency owner, I would say more recently you and I have been like really trying to hone in how we can you know, better perfect our emailing, our
Mhm.
business email, and how we can better improve our strategy on other platforms we haven't even ventured into and things like that that I just don't think you get time to do that as a VA, or I didn't at least.
No, and I agree because
Yeah.
you're focused so much on the task oriented things. And that's just being fully transparent. That's how it was for us in the beginning of this.
Oh yeah.
We were very deeply involved in like individual pieces of client content. But now what's really fun is you and I are in masterminds.
Yeah.
We're in courses. We are
Yes.
constantly learning new things that benefits our clients and also our business too. Like learning just the tricks and trades and the current things that are more relevant to the industry, being on top of it rather than feeling like we just got to catch up, we just got to catch up, we just got to catch up all the time. Whereas now I feel like we're on top of it. We're like putting so much effort into
Yeah.
learning and just growing, and it benefits us and our clients for sure.
Yeah, and like you kind of touched on it too, that just getting on a call with a client and a client asks a question and I feel confident in my answer.
Yeah.
Where at the very beginning, I'm like, I mean, I would suggest doing that, but I wasn't like super sure. But now it's like we've done well over 1,000 months of content total.
Yeah.
Like I know what to speak about this, or, we've created thousands of videos for clients.
Mm-hmm.
We've sent hundreds and hundreds of emails for clients, SMS messages. Like we have just a larger plethora of experience in our specific niche that I feel like it is more fun to go to bed at night and feel like, yes, I'm like, I actually know what I'm doing. And I don't have that imposter syndrome feeling anymore like I really used to have. I'm sure I would still have it in certain environments. Not going to say I wouldn't have it at all. But at the beginning, I was just like, am I doing the right thing? Like, do we know? And I think any business owner that doesn't say that they feel that way, unless they're a guy, guys just have a different confidence. But I would say any woman for the most part in the beginning of their business journey is going to be like, have a little bit of imposter syndrome because you just do.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we put together a super helpful resource for listeners if you've tuned in this long, or 46 minutes in. And it's in the show notes. It's an interview guide to just kind of help walk you through whether you're interviewing an agency or a VA, just so that you can have an outline of some of the questions that we pose to each other and helpful tips and tricks when you're interviewing. So if you're interested in that downloadable guide, it's in the show notes. And then also in the show notes is our support email. If you have any ideas for another episode or questions, concerns, if you wanted to chat with us, definitely all that's in the show notes. So thank you so much for tuning in to our discussion around VAs versus agencies. It's definitely a topic that some people don't even know they need to know about, but you do. So
yeah. And make sure to follow us on Instagram as well.
Yes.
We'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well, but we'd love to chat with you there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.